One spoonful. That's the whole story, and it sounds like a lie. Scoop a level teaspoon of sugar off your kitchen counter, about 4 grams. Now go find the heaviest thing you can picture that isn't a planet. A loaded cement truck, a blue whale, the bell of Big Ben. None of them come close. To match what we're talking about, you'd have to take a mountain, a real one, granite from base to summit, and somehow press the entire thing into the bowl of that single spoon. That's roughly the situation at the core of a neutron star, where a teaspoon of it weighs about as much as a mountain. Your first instinct is probably that this is rubbish. Keep that instinct, you'll need it. The claim isn't the interesting part anyway, the reasoning behind it is. The logic holds up well, better than you'd think, and then at one specific spot it stops cold, right where you'd want it to. Start with what a neutron star even is. A big star, somewhere from roughly 8 to 20 plus times the mass of our Sun, spends millions of years fusing hydrogen into helium, helium into carbon, climbing the periodic table until its core is iron. Iron is where fusion gives up. Fusing it doesn't release energy, it costs energy. So the furnace that was holding the star up against its own gravity goes quiet. The core collapses, and not gently. In about a second, a roughly Earth-sized ball of iron falls inward and crushes down to a sphere maybe 20-some kilometers across. The outer layers rebound and blow off as a supernova, the kind you can spot from clear across the galaxy. What's left is the core, and it's about as dense as matter gets before it tips over into a black hole, the densest thing you could, in principle, stand on, if standing on it didn't flatten you into a film a few atoms thick first. Normal matter is mostly empty space. An atom is a tiny dense nucleus with a haze of electrons around it, and the gap between them is gigantic in relative terms. If the nucleus were a marble on the center line of a football stadium, the nearest electron would be somewhere up in the cheap seats. Everything you've ever touched, the chair under you, your own hand, is mostly that gap, held open by electrons that refuse to occupy the same state. That resistance is strong, and it's what stops your hand passing through the table. Gravity in a collapsing core overrules it. The pressure gets so violent that electrons get rammed into the protons inside those iron nuclei, and the two merge into neutrons. The empty stadium collapses into a single solid floor. You go from atoms with all that room between nucleus and electrons to a material that's basically one continuous nucleus. Neutrons jammed against neutrons with almost nothing in between. That's where the density comes from. Nothing got heavier, the empty space just got squeezed out. This is where the spoon shows up again. The core of a neutron star reaches a density around 10 to the 17 kilograms per cubic meter. Written out, that's a 1 followed by 17 zeros in kilograms. Inside a box 1 meter on a side. A teaspoon is about 5 milliliters, 5 cubic centimeters, a sliver of a cubic meter. Do the multiplication, and a teaspoon of that core material lands somewhere from a few 100 million to about 1 billion tons. And I'm not going to tell you a teaspoon equals Mount Everest down to the kilogram, because it doesn't. Everest weighs very roughly 10 to the 15 kilograms, give or take, depending on where you decide the mountain stops and the crust begins, and nobody actually measures mountains that way. A teaspoon of neutron star core is around 1 billion tons, which is 10 to the 12 kilograms. So against Everest specifically, the spoon is roughly 1,000 times lighter. That puts it in the weight class of a solid mountain, just not the tallest one on Earth. Somewhere from a big hill to a serious peak, depending on which mountain you grab and exactly what density you assume. The title says Everest because Everest is the mountain everyone can picture. The physics says a mountain, broadly, and lands within a factor of a few of that. Both numbers are honest, they're just answering different questions. I don't want you walking away thinking we weighed the Himalayas against a spoon and got a dead-on match. We got a match good to a factor of a few, and in this business, landing within a factor of a few of 1 billion tons is the impressive part. The second caveat is the one that actually gets botched most. When I say the core, I mean the core. A neutron star is not that dense all the way through. It has a thin atmosphere, a crust of more ordinary crushed matter, and the density climbs the deeper you go, peaking at the center. The average density of the whole star is well below that core figure. So a teaspoon scooped from the surface weighs a lot less than one from the heart of it. The teaspoon claim is describing the deep interior, the most extreme stuff in there, not a fair sample of the object. Skip that, and the claim slides from accurate to subtly wrong. So how could anyone know the density of something no probe will ever reach, that's too far to sample and barely shows up in a telescope? These objects are around 20-some kilometers across and sit hundreds or thousands of light years out, so we're not landing on one anytime this side of forever. Density is just mass divided by volume, so if you can pin down the mass and the radius of one of these stars, you've got it. Both turn out to be measurable, with patience and some genuinely clever instruments. Mass first. Plenty of neutron stars come in pairs, orbiting a companion star, and orbital mechanics is about the most dependable tool astronomers have. Watch how two objects swing around each other, and Newton, with a relativistic correction from Einstein, hands you their masses. We've done this for a lot of neutron stars, and they bunch up tightly around 1.4 times the mass of the Sun. That number keeps showing up, for reasons rooted in how the core collapses. But what matters here is that we measured it straight from the orbits instead of guessing at it from a distance. Radius is the harder half, and this is where a NASA instrument called NISR earns its keep. NISR rides on the International Space Station, and it does one thing extremely well. It times X-ray photons arriving from neutron stars down to fractions of a microsecond. A lot of these stars are pulsars, a city-sized ball of crushed matter whirling dozens to hundreds of times a second, its surface moving at a serious fraction of light speed. And they keep better time than most clocks ever built. They've got hotspots that sweep past our line of sight like a lighthouse beam, so the brightness rises and falls in a strict rhythm. A neutron star's gravity is strong enough to bend the path of its own light. That means you can actually see a little way around the far side of the star, because light from hotspots that ought to be hidden behind it gets curved toward you. How much the brightness pattern gets warped depends directly on how compact the star is, on the ratio of its mass to its radius. So the team takes the exact shape of that flickering X-ray signal, runs it through models that bake in Einstein's light-bending gravity, and works backward to the radius that would produce precisely that pattern. You're not reading a ruler, you're reconstructing the whole shape of an object from the warped shadow it throws across the sky. They did this for a pulsar called PSR J0030 plus 0451, a lone neutron star about 1,000 light-years off, and got a radius near 13 kilometers for a mass a touch above the Sun's. Then they did a heavier one, PSR J0740 plus 6620, sitting near 2.1 solar masses, one of the most massive neutron stars known, and found it was only about 12.5 kilometers across. So as you go from a sun and change up past 2 suns of mass, the radius hardly moves, hovering in that 12 to 13 kilometer band. So adding half again as much mass barely changes the star's size. It just packs the extra in and gets denser, which is exactly what you'd expect from matter already fighting for every cubic centimeter. Now run the math end to end. Take roughly 1.4 suns of mass, pour it into the volume of a sphere around 12 kilometers across, and the density that falls straight out is 10 to the 17 kilograms per cubic meter, right onto the round number. The teaspoon figure isn't a guess or a flourish dressed up as fact. It comes from 2 independent measurements, the mass from orbits and the radius from the bent light of a flickering pulsar, 2 separate methods landing on the same number, which is the reason it's worth believing. Up to this point, the certainty has been solid, and now it runs out. We've been describing the star as made of neutrons, and near the surface and through much of the body, that holds up fine. Neutrons crammed together, propped up by a quantum rule that forbids them from sharing the same state, the same effect that holds your hand together, scaled up to hold a star against gravity. That's neutron degeneracy pressure, and it's the version of the story you can actually follow with ordinary physics. But it's a simplification, and right at the center, it may fall apart. The pressures down there run past anything we can recreate in a lab, so we genuinely don't know what matter does at the core of the heaviest neutron stars. Maybe the neutrons hold. Maybe they dissolve into their constituent quarks, a kind of free quark soup, with no business existing anywhere outside the first microseconds after the Big Bang. It could be exotic particles called hyperons, or some phase of matter nobody has even named yet, since nobody's managed to make it to put a name on it. Physicists bundle all that uncertainty into one phrase, the equation of state of dense matter, and pinning it down is one of the live, open problems in physics. NICER's measurements are prized precisely because each radius it nails down kills off some of the options and narrows the field of what that matter could possibly be. So the density is measured and real. The teaspoon runs about 1 billion tons, and that's a mountain by any fair accounting, as long as you remember we mean the core, and we mean it to within a factor of a few. What that core material actually is, at the very deepest point, the real nature of the most extreme matter in the universe, is something we're still working out, with X-ray telescopes timing pulses to the microsecond, and theorists arguing over equations no collider on Earth can test. The spoon is the easy part. We've had the spoon for years. What that one spoonful actually is, at the very center, is the question the telescopes are still chewing on, reading a flicker of X-rays from a quadrillion miles away, and doing geometry on it with relativity.